man. 100 years, man.
A few weeks. I saw you cheating on me the other day. That's all right though.
Oh man, you know what I'm saying, bro? That was crazy, man. You know, me and the young lady we were talking to, man, we actually had a few conversations. We had a few conversations talking about like, oh, I think, damn, crooked in the mug. We had a few conversations recently, and so we decided to just kind of jump on and rap about, the dating scene and all that kind of stuff. And it was
Always,
interesting how, yeah,
always an interesting topic
yeah.
to get into. You know.
Yeah. She had some good points, I had some good points. And it was interesting because when we talk about like relationships and all that kind of stuff, like I think for me, I think the thing that messes us up is we get so caught up in learning and thinking about relationships from a selfish perspective.
Yeah.
We always have the conversation about how can I find the relationship that benefits me. Yo, what's up, what's up, what's up? Welcome to the party. We always talk about the relationships from a perspective of it's about me. How can I better myself and my relationships, and how could this better me in my world? And yes, relationships can directly affect that, but what if we approached it from a perspective of purpose? I mean, what if we approached it, we need better relationships so that we can have a better society, we can have a better future. You know what I'm saying? Like, why don't we look at it from that perspective? But it's always, how does this benefit my feelings right now? And I think that's interesting.
No, I think you're right. I think one of our biggest problems in today's society is selfishness,
Yeah.
and you're seeing a huge rise in a lot of people who look at everything from a perspective of what you can do for me and not what I can do for someone else, which is fine. I think to a degree, a certain amount of selfishness as it pertains to relationships is important, because you do have to protect yourself. There's a lot of people
Right.
out there that are just looking to gain off of you as you enter into the relationship, and we've had the conversation before about how women are born inherently valuable and men have to
Right.
go out and make themselves valuable.
Right.
Which is why I think you're starting to see a bigger degree of older men dating younger women, because we're reaching
Right.
our peaks in our mid 30s and in our 40s. We've made our wealth.
Right.
We've gone off and we're successful for those men who are, and then women are becoming they're successful earlier on, especially in today's society. You see a lot of
Mhm.
these people that are hopping online. I'm not just saying OnlyFans, but just what do they call them? The people online that inspirationists or whatever you call them,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Inspirational people and all
work
that.
out and stuff like that. So girls are peaking a lot younger because it's easier for them with the online community. And so that's why you're seeing this bigger degree of men who are looking for younger women, because once women get into a certain age bracket, you become devalued as such, not as a person. I don't think you're any less of a person, but if a man is 35, looking to have a family, he may not want to start a family with a 33, 32-year-old woman who already has one or more children from one or more men. I mean, that's something that you see a lot where I live. In
Mhm.
Southeast Louisiana, it's very hard to
Yeah.
find girls in their 30s that don't already have kids
Yeah. That's a
from one
common
or
thing
more
for
men.
sure.
You know,
Yeah, I mean, you see that a lot. I mean, you see that a lot. I think that, and my thing is this: if that is the case, if that is your story, where you do have, maybe a couple children, that kind of thing, I think as a human being, you're still valuable. I mean, so I don't
yeah,
want anybody to get the wrong idea. I
no, no,
think that,
no,
but people's perspectives, like you said, different men's perspective may be different. Where it's like, hey, there's nothing wrong with you personally. I just don't want to connect myself with that additional, that additional luggage called, baggage.
yeah,
That's additional luggage. Like because, and here's the thing, and women, I want women to understand this, is that men who don't want to date women who have children, it's oftentimes framed as like, oh, you're just closed-minded and da 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 da. Well, the reality is like, no, it's just that I have a future and a plan and all these things in my mind. And if you have children, I'm considering the fact that I may at one point become stepdad. Now I am a father, to someone else's child. And there's also the situation of dealing with whether the baby daddy is in this picture or not. Now he and I have to have a conversation, and he and I, so there's a lot of additional doors that you have to walk through when you're dealing with someone who has children. And it goes both ways for women or men. But I think
yeah,
it's a different dynamic. I mean, I think that the women, you have to consider the fact that you are stepping into a motherly role if that mother is not around, if that mother is, maybe estranged, or she may be gone. Maybe you're dealing with a widower. You know what I mean? So you're dealing with, there's a lot of dynamics there, and having to build these relationships within already existing relationships. So I think that's one of the things that people have to remember is that at the end of the day, you have to be willing to step back and ask yourself, okay, what is the most beneficial situation for my future? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For my purpose, for my career, for my life goals. And then people who are maybe not necessarily on that list have to be okay with not being on that list. And that's the part. It's like, the part is, it's like, you can like what you like, but if you don't like me, it's a problem. It's like, wait a minute, that's not how that works, So, like I said, it's crazy, but I got something for you, man. You get a kick out of it. I know you just got back in town. I know you just got back in town from touring the hills of, Europe and running for freedom in Scotland and Scotland.
I did, man. I had a great time.
Nice, man. Did you feel like your inner William Wallace roots like rising up inside of you?
I did, man, and they make you work to get to the top of that memorial too,
Oh,
or a monument, right? You got to walk up this hill. It's probably like a good 100 feet. It's a pretty decently steep, winding climb. And then if you want to go to the top, like, there's no elevators. It's like this tiny winding staircase.
Nice.
And it's gonna put your cardiovascular system and your leg muscles to the test if you're not ready. But it was worth it, man. It was worth it. I did a lot of walking. I saw a lot of cool places. I love how old their culture is, and then people will argue that, like, culture in the US is extremely old because, like, the Native Americans, and, like, Native Americans didn't build castles, man. Castles are cool. Sorry. Like, I found castles really, really cool, and I got to see a bunch of them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, like, European history is so old and so violent. It was just really cool to go see a lot of these, and I didn't just see medieval stuff. Like, I was at the battlefield of Culloden, where basically, insurrectionists were trying to break away from the British Crown again, and they were winning this whole war up until this battle, and they were even winning the battle until they lost at the last minute because the British commander was just, he was ruthless. And fired into the Jacobites and his own troops at the same time, and essentially broke their line.
Yeah.
And that was the end of that campaign. So, it was just good. There's a lot of history. There's a lot. I bought a bunch of books while I was there. I bought some books since I've been home, just because I want to read up on a bunch of the things that I ran into and I encountered.
Right.
Just a lot of history, and that's just one country that I've been to so far. I think my next trip's either going to be like a split between UK, between like actual England and Ireland, or I might just go to Iceland.
Yeah.
I haven't decided yet, but we'll see in the coming months.
Yeah, maybe see what the world looks like, in the next year or so. I'm actually planning on doing. Well, I at some point would like to do some traveling. We have been talking about maybe going. I've never been to, like, the Bahamas and stuff. Like, I've never been to the islands. I want to go to the Caribbean area. I've never been down there. I've never been to South America. I want to experience. I've never even been to Mexico. You know what I mean? Like, and that's one of the ones that seems to be the staple that, like, everybody goes to at some point. I've never been to Mexico. I know that, obviously you have to be, head on the swivel. You got to pay attention to where you are. Let's see, this was for the early convo. I believe that a lot of core issues people carry that were never meant to carry to begin with. Yeah. So we bleed on people that never cut you. Absolutely. That's a good point when it comes to relationships. Absolutely. I wish more people were able to understand that. It's like you need to heal before you reconnect. You know what I mean? And the thing about it is, if you don't heal, then what happens is that very thing happens. I've done the same thing. Did you hear? So here's the crazy part. Speaking of travel, have you seen the pictures that have come out of the breaking off in Africa?
The what?
Yeah.
Pieces of the continent broke off?
Not yet. Oh. But apparently there's these pictures, and like I said, I can't confirm or deny because it just popped up. It just came across my feed. Yeah. There's like a fissure that is little by little, like spreading across the back end of the like Horn of Africa, where a new ocean is potentially forming. And they were saying that apparently that, in the far future, who knows, 10, 20, 30, 100 years or whatever, that back Horn of Africa area will potentially break off, and create its own continent, because there's a new ocean that is being created. And I think that's obviously mind-boggling. It makes you think, like, why hasn't California done that yet? You know what I mean? But they. So, all right. Speaking of California,
All right,
bro, here's something interesting. I'm reading about it right now. Let me just read you this headline: San Francisco board open to reparations.
yeah, yeah. I remember. I remember us talk. I think it was either me and you or someone when I was still at work. California had proposed this. I want to say several months ago is when it started gaining traction.
Yep.
And I think it's some. If I believe, if it still says in the article, I think it's somewhere like around 200K per.
Wait, no. It gets even better. So they put out the bill. I'm reading about it. The bill has 100 different ways that they can implement this thing, right?
Okay.
But the main one up front is open to reparations with $5 million payouts.
That's
Yeah,
extreme.
payments of $5 million to every eligible Black adult, the elimination of personal debt and tax burdens, guaranteed annual incomes of at least $97,000 for 250 years, and homes in San Francisco for just $1 a family. That was some of the recommendations. There's 100 recommendations made by a city-appointed reparations committee tasked with the question of how to atone for centuries of slavery and systemic racism and all that stuff. And there's 100 different recommendations. And obviously, right now it has unanimous support, but the final vote report comes in June, whether they'll actually implement all or none of them. You know what I mean? They could always still say no. But right now, it seems to have support, and they'll cut out, obviously not going to do all 100. You know what I mean? But
they'll probably pick a couple or
pick
the main one.
20 or so.
Like, I'd like to see the list of criteria to be eligible.
Right.
That's what I'd like to see, because I mean, you're talking about generations. You're talking what do Black people make up, what, like 13 to 15% of the population right now, maybe more, probably more, at this point, because I think that 13% they've been using that ratio for so many years. I think
right. Well, it hasn't changed much. That's the thing. I think
it's obviously grown. No, I would imagine that. I would imagine that the Black population has increased. Wouldn't you?
Well, but so here's the thing. I was actually just having this conversation last year with a buddy of mine, and we were talking about the Black population and the percentage ratio and things like that. What's interesting about it is that for a long time, they used to say 12, 13, 14%. It kind of bounced between 12 and 14%. We looked it up, and the reality is that the Black population has fluctuated minimally since Black people first came to the country. And it's interesting because we ask, like, why? Why is that the case? Because the Hispanic population has exploded.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And obviously you talk about immigration and all of that kind of stuff, but, there's a constant influx of, people from the Hispanic and Latino, world coming in. But the Black population, let me I can actually pull it up right here. And right now, let's see, race. Here we go. I got the, quick census.gov here. Here we go, Black Americans. Right now, according to the census.gov, and obviously you add a few because Black folks don't always do the census. Let's just be real with it. To be honest with you, I know in our household we ain't always do the census. I know a bunch of folks don't do the census, but as of right now, it is stated at set at 13.6%, and that was 2022.
Okay.
So I would say if you add people who haven't done the census or whatever the case is, maybe 14%. Yeah, maybe 14% at best. What's interesting about that is like, how is that the case when, you know, the black population, essentially outside of the white population and maybe Native American population, are the oldest, you know, ethnicities in the country? So how is it that over these last however many years, the black population has not grown as much? Well, as much as everybody else. You know, the obviously the white population has dwindled. You know,
Yeah.
they've gone down. You know, so now right now the nation is like 63% Caucasian or white Anglo-Saxon, however you
Yeah.
want to frame it. Because what people mistake is that, I think we talked about this, like white people, there's no such thing as white or black people, first of all. But white people are just as diverse ethnically as any other ethnic group.
Oh
Because I mean,
yeah.
you have Irish, you have Eastern European, you have England, you have Italian. I mean, you go down, they're just as diverse as any other group, which I think is interesting. But you know, white people have been put in this Caucasian, have been put in this category of, well, you're just white. And it's like, well, no, you have Bosnian, Slovakian, you know, you got Russian, you've got, you know, and a lot of these people don't like each other. Like, they're not even on the same page. You know, Croatian, I mean, just in Europe, think about all the little countries in Europe.
Yeah.
You
All the
know,
different
there's so many
little
different dynamics, Kazakhstan and all these folks. So, but that's another conversation. But I would say this is that over time, it has dropped down from like 90% to like 63% because there's nobody really pure anymore. I mean, so
no.
much mixture, and you know, the Hispanic population is like at 30% now, you know, 25%, something like that. And then you have the
But
black population, which,
you bring up, but you said it, the pureness of
mhm,
especially in the United States, like we're a big melting pot. You see a
right,
lot of ethnicities that mix with each other. You know, black and white, Spanish and white, black and Spanish,
right,
Asian, and everything like that.
yep,
I don't think it'd be out of the realm of possibility that you're going to see, you know, your mainstay when we talk about like black, white, Hispanic, Asian, like those populations probably are dwindling. Like the pure, you know, because you're
yeah,
not going to find that you're finding less and less people that are like, yeah, I'm from, you know, like I was born in Germany. I'm of German descent. On my father's side is very German. Like everybody's
right,
been German I can trace it back, I think, to like the 14th or 15th century, right?
right,
On my mom's side, though, they're Italian, they're Native American,
right,
they're Irish. It's just a bunch of people that got together, you know, in this melting pot. So you're going to see a lot more of that ethnic, man, this is going to
right,
make me sound terrible, that ethnic purity
right,
in those European countries because they're much
right,
older. You know, like when I went to Norway, a lot of the people look the same
mhm,
because you know Norway is a predominantly, you know,
Norwegian, you know,
Norwegian white country. So most of the
right,
people now, when I was in the major cities, obviously there's a lot more diversity there in the major
right,
cities, but you start getting away from the main cities and stuff like that, you'll see
right,
that pure those pure people. And I would imagine if you go to places like I work with a lot of guys from Uganda, and
yeah,
they're showing me pictures of like their hometowns and stuff like that, and that like they all look the exact same.
right,
I'm not saying that all black people look the same. I'm just saying that like if you look at their
right.
town, they'll show you
Oh, you
pictures.
can't say
You can't
that.
say that.
Yeah,
But then, but even they will say they'll tell me that like if you go across the border into one of the other neighboring countries, like they have a different culture. They look different. Their skin's either lighter or darker
right,
or whatnot like that. But as our population around the world is continuing to grow, the
right,
mixture the mixture of these pure, you know,
right,
ethnicities is obviously gonna have to go down. So I think when you look at the census, you also have to look at the fact of how many people don't fall into a category or they pick a
right.
category.
Awesome.
Because let's be honest, especially with the way things are today, if you're mixed between black and white, a lot of people will choose to be white, thinking that it's going to give them, you know, a better advantage, or you know,
Right,
if their skin's fair enough. And then on the flip side, if they're dark enough, then they choose black. So I mean, how much of these numbers are non-existent and we're
right,
not reporting them? Do we need to create a
right,
whole new category of like,
right.
you know, Asian
Well,
and white,
yeah,
black
well,
and
that's
white,
why they
Spanish
put, and
and
I think
white?
that's why they put like other, you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah,
you know, like for me, like I'm a mutt,
yeah,
right? And I know that's kind of derogatory. You can't call yourself a mutt. Like, bro, I'm a mutt because I come from like, you go on my ancestral history and stuff like that. Like, we actually have a family member who's doing that right now. Like, he's older, he's retired, so he decided to do a big deep dive into one side of our family. And I mean, I've got French, I've got Native American, I've got you know, black, there's some Caribbean, there's you know, my mother, she did her little ancestral thing, came back with some Scandinavian, you know what I mean? So it's like, the reality is that, you know, because I come from a mulatto background,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and most people don't even know what mulatto is. You know, mulatto is that mixture between black and essentially white, and you get this
Yeah.
mix. So I come from that kind of background, man. And it's funny because when I was all shaved up and everything, people used to think I was Dominican. People used to say I was a Middle Eastern. You know what I mean? Like, I've gotten all kinds of stuff. And the
Yeah.
reality is that if we could get past the shackles of demographics, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think in many aspects we have become so blinded by color. You know what I mean? I think that color and ethnicity and all of these things have caused us, and obviously, you know, society has played a role in that, of course. You know, we've created these societal structures of race, and, you know, your race is greater or lesser than this race. And at the end of the day, personally, I believe that if we could get past the color aspect and just see everybody's individual colors and cultures as beautiful, you know what I mean? If we could just say, oh, look at you, you're beautiful, you're beautiful. Guess what? Your culture is interesting. You know what I mean? Instead of it being lesser or better, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think if we could get to that place of who defines what that culture is, who's to say that this is limited only to this group of people? Who's to say, like, you know, it's funny when I hear like kids always talk about like country music, and you know this just as much as I do. In the Marine Corps, there is no such thing as anybody's particular anything.
Dude, everybody
Everybody does.
listens to
Like, everybody
everything. Yeah.
listens to everything. And I remember when I first got assigned when I was in like MOS school. I remember I got there up in Maryland, and you know, I'm from Detroit, man. You know, I mean, West Side Detroit. All I know was Motown, hip hop, R&B. You know, I went down to Florida, and it was hip hop. I mean, my environment was all hip hop and R&B and all that, you know. And there was a time where I was like, oh, you know, country, man. I remember being in MOS school, and my first night, I'm in my rack, and you know, we PT at 4 a.m. You know, everybody comes around 4 o'clock, we get up. At 3:59, I never forget it. It was this dude down the way in his room. At 3:59, his alarm or whatever would go off, and it was like Hank Williams or something. It was like, well, I went on, you know, it was super backwood country. And I remember I woke up like, bro, what in the world is
What
this?
is
What did I
that?
sign up for? But guess what? I bet you 2 months later, at 3:59, guess what I was doing?
You were
I
singing
woke
that.
up.
You were
Well,
singing
I
that.
ran. You know what I'm saying? And it opened being in the military to me opened my eyes to so many different things, so many different aspects, so many different cultures, so many different people, because people come from all these different backgrounds. And I think personally, I think everybody should do at least 1 year in the military just to get your brain broken of a lot of the stereotypes and limitations. You know what I mean?
I ran into this kid. He was from Shreveport, Louisiana. His name was John Hale. I served with him, and I met him in infantry school. And
Mm-hmm.
he had the first time I met him, because you know I was like, "Yeah, I'm from New Orleans." He's like, "Oh, I'm from Shreveport." Now this is like straight up, right out of. He looked like he was straight up right out of the Philippines. And this dude is talking with this southern twang, like a cowboy. And I
Yeah.
thought he was messing with me. Like I thought he was making fun of me. And then like we get to, we become better friends, and he showed me pictures. The dude did rodeos. He's wearing a Stetson. He's got belt buckles from ride.
Yeah.
I think he
Yeah.
rode bulls for a while. It's just
Yeah.
crazy because when I
Straight out
when
of
I imagine somebody like,
Yellowstone.
yeah, God, straight out of Yellowstone. It makes me want to be a cowboy.
You know what I'm
I
saying?
can't ride. I've never ridden a horse though. But this dude was just. He was a good dude. It was crazy to think that like based off of like when you're looking at him, you would have never known. And then to find out, like, the first time you go to a libo formation and he's wearing, like, cowboy boots,
Mm-hmm.
skin-tight jeans, tucked-in shirt, big old belt buckle, and like a 19-gallon hat. I was just, I got a kick out of him, man. He was such a fun dude to be around. Yeah. Ethnicity has become people's identity, is what it
Mm-hmm.
is.
Yeah.
And what it is it's used as a very good political tool by whatever
Yeah.
side wants to wield it. Hey, they're encroaching on white culture. They're trying to kill your idea of your own nationalism.
Mm-hmm.
Black people, they're trying to keep you down, and they want to segregate you and keep you out of their
Mm-hmm.
fold and develop a country that, where only white people succeed.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we developed a country where white people were succeeding, I think our population would be going up and not down.
Mm-hmm.
I think these are all tools used by those in charge, by the government, by political parties to like we talked about
Absolutely.
it before. Racism is a poor people's problem. Like rich
Right.
people don't care. They don't care about white and black. Like they don't. When two billionaires sit down at a table, they don't care. They care about one color, and that's green.
Right.
And so we've been tricked to believe that, one of us is better than the other, and or
Mm-hmm.
one of us is better than everyone, and everybody
Right.
else is subservient to everyone else. Whites are
Right.
better than blacks are better than Hispanics, so on and so forth. And it's just to the point now where I think it's laughable that people still, they still like rally to those cries. They still feel like this sense of like, we as a people need to unite. I get the biggest kick, honestly, out of neo-Nazis. I think out of any group, they're probably the most ridiculous people to have. If you listen to them speak about their ideologies, because all their ideologies are old as shit.
Mm-hmm.
From a defeated nation, from a defeated
Mm-hmm.
man, and none of it makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to solve racism, stop talking about it. I'm sure I butchered it, but some
Oh
thought-provoking
yeah.
worthy to it. No, I remember
Yeah.
when Morgan Freeman thought about it. Morgan Freeman's like one of my favorite actors forever.
Mm-hmm.
But no, yeah, talking about it, especially in politics, every other news article has to hammer down on what the race and political affiliation of whatever perpetrator of whatever atrocity has
Right.
happened this
Right.
week. And it's very easy to get sucked into those types of things. And we have a narrative in this country when it's a mass shooting, we need it to be a white, conservative person that's doing the mass shooting. If it's anybody else, we don't
Yeah.
talk about it. It won't
Yeah,
stay in the
that's
news
true,
for
man.
long,
You just hit a point that I made a little while back. I was talking to somebody, and just kind of analyzing, the mass shootings and the serial. Like when you think serial killer, the first thing that comes to mind is like Jeffrey Dahmer and all of these people, and it's always attributed serial killer as white. This white crazy person who's around here killing
yeah.
people. But the reality is, what constitutes a serial killer is somebody who's killed like 3 to 5 people, whatever cases, right? Systematically
Multiple.
killed 3 to 5 people. That's when you get labeled as a serial killer. Well, here's the thing about it is, like, I thought, and I brought this up, and this was controversial. People were just like, because I said, when we talk about serial killer, right, and we always label it to a, white deranged guy, because he systematically has killed 3 to 5 people or whatever or more. But the crazy part about it is, I've been in neighborhoods where I know cats that are out here systematically killing people as part of whatever affiliation they have, and we act like that's normal, and we turn a blind eye to it. And I'm speaking from my community, from a perspective of like, it's cats that are like that,
Mm-hmm.
who are out here taking folks out left and right. You don't say nothing because that's just who they are, and that's just part of the community and the culture. We don't label them serial killers.
Yeah.
We don't label them. We don't label, I mean, because like, people don't understand. There's a lot of killers walking around in society that you don't know about, that of all races and colors and creeds and nationalities. But the media has convinced you that the only people that can be serial killers are, the only people that can be serial killers are the awkward, white guy who doesn't talk to anybody. And the truth is that, that's not the case, and I wish that I wish that we as a people could get back to seeing things objectively. We talk about this all the time. If we could get back to seeing things objectively, like the reality is that let's call a spade, whether you're black, white, brown, blue, Puerto Rican, or Asian. A mass shooting is a mass shooting, regardless whether it's white,
Yeah.
whether it's a black person, or whatever the case is. And guess what? Here's the other side of it. Not everything is a mass shooting. And now they've labeled it to where every single gun-related incident is now being called a mass shooting. And I don't know if anybody noticed that, but that's one of the things they're doing as part of this movement, because you saw they passed a bill through the House talking about banning the selling of assault rifles or any kind of rifles and all that stuff.
High capacity magazines. The
Mm-hmm.
ATF is trying to ban like the pistol stock braces, and make like you got 120 days to go like report and register that, or you're considered a felon. It's almost a little ridiculous that they'll pass these laws and then try to like make you a criminal when you were not a criminal,
Right.
5 days ago. I think it's a scare
Right.
tactic.
Mm-hmm.
If people just calm down, like I'll call them the gun nuts if they'll just settle down for 5 minutes. I see where you're coming from. I understand, and I believe in the same things too. But there's no one to enforce this. If anything, it will affect future sales. But if you just keep your fucking mouth shut nothing's going to happen because there's no entity
Right.
in this country or on this earth that can go door to door. And there's more guns in the U.S. than there are citizens.
Right.
There's more guns than
Well,
citizens. Let that sink in. How many police officers are in the world or in the country? I think it's somewhere around 900,000 was the last.